Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 2024 preseason power rankings, where today we're talking about our 16th ranked team, the Buffalo Bills, a team that's not used to being ranked this low. This is a team that for the last 5 or so years has been ranked in the top 10 or near the top 10. And after a tumultuous offseason, after a loss of what seemed like a franchise piece, this team is going to go down. But I'm still very optimistic about the Bills. My co-host here, not as much, but we're going to get into it as we start. What do you think about this Bills team?
I mean, my thing here, right? The culture's really good. Like, it's a strong culture. And I think because of that, this is kind of like around the lowest that you could rank them. I feel like the lowest you could rank them is like 18. I've seen this team ranked in the top 10 despite the losses from the offseason. I structure to say a team that's retooling quite like this can really be top 10, especially because of how many good teams are in the NFL. I think, again, there isn't really a world where they're awful, and because of that, I think worst case scenario, they're like a pesky team that will win some games. And the games they lose, they're still fighting really tough. But the ceiling isn't what it used to be. All right, there is no world where they make the AFC Championship. I'm sorry, or the divisional round. I see some people that are more optimistic than me. Like I said, this team has been ranked in the top 10 even after the losses in the offseason. I just really struggle to do that. This is definitely one of the rankings on our list, like the Cowboys ranking, that really defines it because this is a very almost contrarian type of perspective, but both of us kind of just struggle, even you as the optimist, to say they're as good of a team as past years.
Totally. And like something I want to make clear about my power rankings is I'm going to start, not my power rankings, our power rankings. I'm going to start doing my record predictions. And just because I predict the team's going to be really good, but they're lower on the list. This is we're looking at the roster objectively. This isn't a record prediction show,
Yeah.
right? Like we could think the Bills are going to be better than the 16th ranked team in football.
Strength
But
of schedule isn't part of the power ranking. Like,
exactly.
that's the
It's not
reality.
part of the power ranking.
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing. I just want to make that very clear. But let's talk. You touched on this culture. It is a very good culture. Sean McDermott's a very good culture head coach, and it was a rough, not rough, but a tumultuous year last year in general, where people were like, "Oh, Sean McDermott's great," and then they went on that losing streak, and everyone's like, "Fire Sean McDermott," and then they leveled back out. What do you think about Sean McDermott as a head coach?
McDermott, of course, does things in a little bit of an obscure way, but he does a good job, right? He's one of those true culture guys, kind of like a Jim Harbaugh, a little bit, in the sense of he's going to get his guys fired up. He'd rather have the passionate player who's a little bit worse in terms of athleticism than the freak athlete who isn't studying the playbook as hard. The guys like Matt Milano and some of these other guys, the Khalil Shakirs, he'll take over the I guess Roquan. I don't want to diss Roquan Smith here, but he'll take him over, those freak athletes.
Totally.
Because they'd rather have like these guys that know their rules, know exactly what the playbook demands, and don't really take shortcuts due to their athleticism. I almost threw a stray at Roquan Smith there. But that's not really a great example because he's someone that does both. But still, my point is, it's clear.
The mental guys.
Yeah,
the mental guys.
He wants the mental guys. That's the type of player he looks for, and that's how he builds his culture.
And as a defensive-minded head coach, he doesn't run some like exotic, out there scheme. It's a lot of the players are just really well coached. The players, all of them, have good technique. They know exactly what they're doing on the defense. It's not it's not Will McDonald. It's Mike McDonald. This is the second time I've confused 15th overall pick Will McDonald and Mike McDonald in a recording. But it's not like Mike McDonald where it's just crazy fronts, crazy pressures out of nowhere. He doesn't blitz. It may be a lot of simulated pressure, but not a lot of blitzing coming from Sean McDermott, and he doesn't really need it to be that way.
Yeah,
He's never really wanted it that way.
And we're going to get into that stuff later on when we get into the defensive scheme, right?
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be like that. He's not a head coach because of his knowledge of the defensive side of the ball. That's the reality. He's a head coach because of what he does for that locker room, right?
Mhm.
Has he been great in the playoffs? No, I wouldn't say he's been as bad as some people think, though.
No.
And their playoff losses weren't them not being able to really step up in the playoffs. It's just it gets to the point where you need that talent, right? That's what happens, right? You can't be letting up 46 points in the playoffs. And listen, it's nothing wrong with your scheme. You just don't have the Jimmies and Joes. You're fine in the X's and O's, right?
Yes.
McDermott makes sure his team plays tough football and every player plays their role. It truly is a do-your-job type of football team. And the majority of their players are just cogs in that system, and that's perfectly fine. But every now and then, I want to say 1 out of every 10 players on this roster are like a guy, right? And those are the guys that they need to consistently step up when they play the Chiefs in January and when they're playing playoff football. But this team will always be decently successful in the regular season. Now they're trying to reach out more for those athletes, right? That's what they did in the draft. That's why this is such a different season for them. It's a little bit more of an experiment because they're trying to get a Keon Coleman and some of these other freaks in the draft. They're retooling, going away from their veterans that have been cogs in the system for so long. That's why I'm a little bit less certain in this team as a finished product at the moment because they are retooling.
But let's get on to this offense, and we'll talk about offensive coordinator Joe Brady, who came into his role in the middle of last season after the Bills fired Ken Dorsey. I don't think he did anything. I thought his offense was extremely similar to Dorsey's. Just for some reason, it was getting executed a bit better. One thing I will say about Brady, if you don't know, he was the offensive coordinator for that 2019 LSU team, Joe Burrow, all that stuff. A lot of that spread out the field offense. But I really like that they focused on running the ball a lot more when he came into, his own as an offensive coordinator. And James Cook, who we'll touch on, very good running back. Leaning on him really helped near the end of the season, especially against the Cowboys, who just not built to be a running team. If you haven't not to be a run defending team, if you haven't watched our analysis on them,
for sure.
I think Joe Brady's good. Is any offense coordinator that comes through here a beneficiary of Josh Allen? Absolutely. But I like him. It's very middle of the line offense coordinator for me.
I like that you did a little bit of comparison to Ken Dorsey's offense because schematically, it was the same. The same concepts were being ran. It was just the approach to play calling was so different, right? Joe Brady was far more conservative, far less reliant on the big play. I can't say that about Dorsey. Dorsey was always searching for the big play, and for them, a 3rd and 10 was the same as a 1st and 10. The playbook is the same exact thing. They're trying to take those deep shots, man. And it was still a spread offense that runs a lot of gap scheme when they do run the ball. But did they run the ball much under Dorsey? No. Did they run the ball a decent amount under Brady? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Did they have hitches and stuff in their playbook? Of course they did. But were they actually throwing to the hitches under Dorsey? No, not really. Brady, very different. It was the approach to play calling, not the plays that were called themselves that were so different. And that, I think, was such a necessary change because it became way less Josh Allen dependent under Brady.
Yes, and that's a good word for it, is Josh Allen dependent. Because, again, as I mentioned, leaning on that run game, leaning on just more run after catch plays, not just bombs down the field. But let's go to that quarterback then, Josh Allen. Some people think he's extremely overrated. I'm not one of those people. Josh Allen, to me, is the second best quarterback on the planet. And I mean, what can you not say about him from an athletic standpoint? Got the strongest arm in the league. He can read defenses. Yes, he has games that he loses for this team. It happens. But he also wins every single game that they win for this team. That's just how it is with Josh Allen. I will take the 3 turnover games if you're going to give me a bunch of 5 touchdown games that he provides you, right? Like, the good outweighs the bad by a lot for me with Josh Allen.
If you want a sense of how much of this offense was Josh Allen, last year 28% of Josh Allen's passing yards, only 28, were after the catch. That is extremely low, right?
Kyle Shanahan would vomit.
Yeah, he would completely vomit, and that was just how Josh Allen plays, man. He wants to be Superman. And did that go against him sometimes? Yes, like you said, the 3 interception games are a reality when you have a Josh Allen on the field. But you want to win games single-handedly because of your quarterback. You want to be able to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. You want to be able to win these shootouts. You have to have someone like him. Because the fact is, like I said earlier, the X's and O's can only get you so far. You have to have someone that can just break the game. That's the modern NFL. And the fact is, Josh Allen
the
can.
definition of a game breaker.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So, and then behind them, they do bring back Mitchell Trubisky, who was a good backup for him prior years. Gets back into this backup role. Just a good backup to have. Thought I'd mention it. But let's move over to this new retooled receiving core that everybody's talking about. Some people are higher on it, like myself. Some people lower on it, like yourself. And that's totally fine. There's a lot of unknown here. There's a lot of projection going on with this team. But I do want to start with the top receiver in this squad, and that is Khalil Shakir, playing in the slot role for this team. I love Khalil Shakir. As long as a lot of people really love Khalil Shakir, I actually thought he was the better receiver over Stephon Diggs in the back end of this season. What he's able to do, just phenomenal route runner, great after the catch. He's got phenomenal hands. I'm a big Shakir guy. Sure, not an X by any stretch. He is this slot receiver, but we have seen offenses such as the Lions where you have a slot receiver that is the number one target and it works out. Is that how it's going to be? We've never really seen that with Josh Allen and this Bills offense. Will they make him the primary target? Who knows? All I know is I'm a big Shakir guy, and I think he's going to catch a lot of passes this season.
I mean, I will say this about Shakir. The numbers don't lie in terms of yards after catch. He was 3rd in the NFL among receivers that had more than 35 targets on the season. He was 3rd in the NFL in yards after catch per reception, right? That's a big asset, right? We talk about how we want to kind of take the load off of Josh Allen. Guys like Shakir really help that happen. I think he is definitely a good route runner. Being in the slot, that definitely is an important asset that will be maximized, an important trait that will be maximized from the slot. So I do definitely like the fit there. To me, he's a little bit more of a complimentary guy, but definitely a contributor for a passing attack that with that quarterback, it's going to be good no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And now let's move to their essentially first round pick. He was the top of the second round, but still. Keon Coleman, very divisive receiver prospect. I wasn't the highest on him. In fact, he wasn't the best receiver on the board for me when he was taken. However, I really like the fit because of the athlete that we touch back with the fact that, yes, you can have the X's and the O's. You need to have the Jimmies and the Joes. You need to have athletic specimens and hit on them at some point. So they're taking that risk here with Coleman, who A-plus athlete. This guy jumps out the gym. Phenomenal hands. Just spectacular catch after spectacular catch. Great after the catch. Athlete. However, he has his issues. Not a separator. Not a great route runner. This is a moldable piece for this Bills team. And there's a world where this doesn't work out, where he's just a big dude that can't get a lot done, can't get open. A lot like, what's the word? N'Keal Harry almost, right? But I think he's a little more athletic than N'Keal. But to me, the appeal is you're going to pair super athlete with super athlete. That could turn out really well if it works out, man, because you see those plays where Keon Coleman's 30 feet in the air catching the ball with one hand, you know? So this is a projection-based thing. Mm-hmm. If he's good year one, that's a really big deal. I don't expect him to be all that great year one, but we'll see. What's your take on Coleman?
He'll have his Sports Center top 10 plays of the week type of plays. He will. Will he be more than that? That's the question, right? I talked about it. I think Shakir's a complimentary guy, and they need someone to truly be like that dominant, winner. That winner. Not X, Z, whatever. They need a winner. He wins at the catch point. Can he win in other ways? I just don't see it. I like him as a role guy, and that's not what they need. Okay? Maybe he could prove me wrong. Right? You have a player that's that big, can track the ball that well. There's a ceiling there. There absolutely is. But I kind of hate his route running, if I'm being honest. I kind of hate it. And we look at, why did Stephon Diggs work so well with Josh Allen for so long? Stephon Diggs could separate, and he could separate really well. Keon Coleman might be able to win at the catch point, but it's not like Josh Allen's lofting this overly catchable ball. Here's what you have to keep in mind. Josh Allen has a rocket right arm. Rocket. But that's not ideal for 50-50 ball catch winners. Okay? It isn't. That's not ideal because it's really difficult to win a 50-50 ball type of situation when the ball is getting lofted over to your back shoulder. That's already difficult. But if it's getting rocketed, it's difficult, man. It's not impossible, and maybe Keon Coleman is so good at it, it can be a match made in heaven, and it will work out really well, and it could be borderline unstoppable. But if so, he would have to be a historically great, a Brandon Marshall type of guy. And I guess that ceiling is there, but I don't know. I really struggle to bank on that.
Totally, and I do think Coleman was underutilized over at Florida State, and even just taking away the fact that his starting quarterback got hurt. The guy got 42% of Florida State's receiving touchdowns last year. That's a ridiculous number for a college team. This guy's talent. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I just want to say this. I'm glad they mentioned the quarterback because this is something I didn't think about too much, and now that you kind of started to mention it, I do just want to say this. Something Jordan Travis did a lot was some backyard football. And Keon Coleman was kind of the quarterback's best friend in those situations. Maybe that's what we see here with Josh Allen.
And that's something that's scary. Those are those plays where Josh Allen's rolling to his left, throws back across the middle of the field to his body, and then Coleman one hand catches it, 30 feet in the air. That's the scary stuff. That's the stuff that's terrifying as a Dolphins fan, because I know damn well I love Kendall Fuller. He's a good cornerback. At some point, he's going to get one-handed by Keon Coleman, and it's going to be devastating.
And it's going on the Sports Center top 10 plays of the week.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
what this guy is. He's a highlight player.
Keon Coleman might have 400 yards on the year, and all 400 of those yards come in the 2 games against the Miami Dolphins. That might just happen. But that's not while this isn't some star-studded receiver core, at least not yet, I do think it's relatively deep. I think there's some really just nice players to have in this room. Curtis Samuel, I think we both agree, one of the more underutilized players throughout his career, just kind of used at this pure gadget guy when I think he's a bit more than that.
Yeah, and as a gadget guy, he is really effective. I also think just as a gadget guy, he also wasn't utilized enough. This is someone that could line up in the backfield, play that Deebo Samuel role. Why did we only see it in Carolina? Right? It doesn't really make sense to me. He's someone who could actually run routes pretty well, too. He is he's a role player who could be much more.
Yes.
Right? It's another guy where the ceiling, there's potential there.
And you hoping that, maybe Joe Brady can unlock that potential. Again, not an overly creative guy, so we'll see. But, again, you also have, his speed paired with Josh Allen's arm. You have to mention it. That's scary. It's always scary.
And the same could be said about Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's another receiver in that room. He could be someone that really expands the field because of his speed. That could do a lot for them. Chase Claypool is worth being named, I guess.
Worth being named. He was the best receiver in mini camp a month or 2 ago. So there's that to mention. I haven't heard a thing since. But,
and then going even deeper, KJ Hamler is a guy, right? It's just about his health. And then Andy Isabella at worst, a gadget guy. At worst. I still
And we
think
haven't
there's a
even
little bit of meat on the bone with him.
and we haven't even touched on Mac Hollins. I love Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins is just, I mean, he plays a role. He's a great blocking receiver, and he's going to go up and catch the football over you.
Mm-hmm.
That's his role, and I think that's a really good fit with Josh Allen.
Yep. And it's the ideal wide receiver 4. Like, that's what I look at. When I say wide receiver 4, I'm looking for someone that can come in, catch a goal line fade, and that's what Mac Hollins is.
Absolutely. Right? So
yeah,
let's move on from the receivers now, and let's move over to the tight ends with a really, really fun tight end room. You have Dalton Kincaid, drafted last season as this kind of big slot receiving tight end, and he's in for a massive season, it feels like.
Mm-hmm. He is who I look at. You're saying who's going to replace Diggs? Who's going to replace Diggs? Is it Shakir? Is it Coleman? No, it's Kincaid.
Yeah.
It's Kincaid. That's how I look at it. I truly do think Kincaid can be like in that Kelsey conversation. I truly do. I think he is that good. I think he is that caliber of player. Athleticism, ball skills, hands, route running, all of it is so effective. And it's not just, it's effective for a tight end. No, it's effective like by wide receiver standards. So he could go out there, I mean, he did it at Utah, play perimeter, right? He could go out there at slot. He could go out there as an H-back. He's a versatile weapon that will damage you from all of these different spots. Is he a traditional tight end? No, not at all. He can't block extremely well. He isn't overly strong. He isn't going to run through guys. But, man, can he separate.
And that was the thing coming out pre-draft for him. He never really got the Travis Kelce comp per se, but Daniel Jeremiah always alluded to, like, this is the kind of player that he is. This is the type of receiving threat that he can be. And we saw it, This is a guy who's really good at settling in the zones, being a quarterback's best friend. He's, again, really good on the scramble drill as well, which is a great fit with Josh Allen. He's in for a monster season. Like, we don't talk about fantasy on here at all, but if you're going to draft tight end in fantasy, Dalton Kincaid's probably a pretty damn good bet, right? Mm-hmm. But right behind him, too, is another good tight end. More of that traditional inline blocking tight end. Well, not quite inline.
He's a little bit more. Like, he does it better.
He does
but
it
he
better.
Still is more of a jumbo slot, and that's why it kind of sucks. Like, Dawson Knox is not going to be playing his ideal role. Unless, I guess they could pull out some weird, like, 2x2 formation where they have
like
two jumbo slots.
Double jumbo slot?
Yeah.
Double jumbo slot type
Which, I like, you can, but, like, why?
It might be fun in the red zone.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean?
But, like, Knox isn't a bad inline tight end. It's just kind of, it's misutilization. But what else are they going to do? Move Kincaid as a traditional tight end? Like, no.
Keon Coleman to tight end, actually.
Could be the move. Could be the move. But, yeah, no, he's a great after-catch player.
Yep.
It just sucks, He's not going to be utilized as much in his ideal spot.
No. But we'll move back to, unless there's another tight end you want to touch on here.
I want to move to a fullback, Reggie Gilliam, who is like a nice utility fullback. Will go out there, catch some passes. Not really much of a ball carrier. He truly is someone that could go out there, pass block. Not a superb run blocker, but a capable pass blocker who will, go out on a wheel route and catch some passes. We're going to get into some stuff with James Cook, but if there's one thing that really stands out about Brady's offense, and I guess it was also kind of Dorsey's, it's not just that he utilizes receivers out of the backfield. He utilizes receivers out of the backfield to extend the field, right? Sell vertical and threaten teams deep. Gilliam is one of the few fullbacks I expect to go out there and catch like a 20-yard, 30-yard pass, right? Like, that's what he does. And not many teams are thinking about the man responsibility on the fullback, right? That's just not something teams are overly cautious of. And when you have a fullback sneaking out on a wheel route and he catches a 40-yard touchdown like that, it's scary. It's scary. And scary. Guys get shoot out in the film room because of it.
Absolutely. But we'll move from the fullback now to the running back in James Cook, who I think James Cook is phenomenal. I don't know how highly you think of him, but I don't think it's crazy to say he's a top 10 running back. That's just where I am with him.
So with James Cook, I don't know where I would rank him. He might be
Right.
top 10 for me. Again, I just don't really care for rankings
Right.
much. I've never been a big ranking guy, but he is a good running back for sure. He fits the scheme. I don't know how much of a bell cow he is, and I think that's kind of the bad thing here. I don't see many other like ball carriers that I love. Actually that's not true. They drafted someone who I do like as like a sub the guy
Yes.
in type
Yes.
of player. But
I mean, maybe not straight up bell cow, but this guy was 10th in the NFL in carries last year. You know what I mean? And that
mhm.
was after this team began being like, okay, let's lean on the run game a bit
Yeah,
more.
but I think my thing with James Cook more than anything is he's like a splash play getter, right? He'll get his splash plays, but he's not efficient on a down to down type of role. When you give him more than 10, 12 carries in a game, the decline in terms of yards per carry, it happens, right?
Right.
Because he isn't someone who is made to be a bell cow. And I think that's fine because he does a really good job in some other ways, right? I just talked about how we see Brady use pass catchers out of the backfield to
Damn good
extend the
pass
field.
catcher.
James Cook isn't just the type of, Austin Eckler, even Christian McCaffrey who goes out into the flat and catches a pass and makes a play after the catch. No. He is going to go 20 yards down the field and catch a pass, right?
Yep.
It's really funny to me the amount of times that Josh Allen saw a middle of the field open coverage, a cover 2, Tampa 2, whatever, and then threw it to the running back going up the middle of the field. You don't see that as often with other teams. Like, it doesn't happen, and that's kind of like a go-to play for the Buffalo Bills. There was a specific play against the Chiefs where the Bills used a jet motion to draw the high safety down, and then James Cook just got wide open deep down the field for a touchdown. Yep. Right? I mean, it's the type of guy who will threaten you vertical. And it doesn't happen as much from the running back position. That's what makes him so unique to me.
Right. And I absolutely hear you. What he does out of the backfield is super valuable to this team and to this offense. And let's touch on the guys who'll be backing him up. Now, in this depth chart, it says Ty Johnson's the backup. I would say Ray Davis, for the majority of the season, probably ends up being the true backup on this team. And this is somebody who's much more of that downhill runner, big guy, bowling ball of an individual, if we're being honest. Like, you're going to hand the ball. You can hand the ball to him as a bell cow. Absolutely can. What he did in Kentucky, what he did in college, that's what he did. Mm-hmm. And to be more of a change of pace back as well, we always talk about teams having, that lightning and the thunder. James Cook would be the lightning. This guy would be the thunder because he's a thumper. He is going to, again, go downhill, find the hole, punch through it. Not much of a make-you-miss guy, but people bounce off him because he's 5'8", 220 pounds. He's got a low center of gravity. Mm-hmm. It's hard to bring him down.
He runs tough. I mean, that's the main thing. Like, there's not many running backs. He's like Isaiah Pacheco in the sense of you just watch him run forward. It doesn't matter if
he's angry
players are trying to tackle him. Yeah, he's angry at the ground. And his story is so interesting. I really highly recommend people look into, his story going into the NFL because it's a really interesting one. And it makes sense why he plays with so much heart. I mean, it's visible. It is a McDermott guy right here. And then Ty Johnson is someone I see as more of that third down back. Not because he's the best pass catcher, but good blocker. One of the better pass blocking running backs in the NFL. I mean, they even line him up at tight end a couple times last year. It was really interesting to see that in that Cowboys game that we mentioned earlier. I mean, he's someone that goes out and blocks pretty damn well. Like, that's his role.
And that's a lot of the reason why he has a job and why he's in the NFL.
Yes.
That is his role.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to mention it because, son of an NFL legend, you have to. Frank Gore Jr. is on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Does he do a whole lot? Probably not. But he is on this team.
Yeah. Someone is going to wear a Frank Gore Jr. jersey to Bills training camp in 2030. All right. Yes. Someone will. And it will be all over Twitter.
But
let's get into this offensive line, though.
Yes.
Right?
This offensive line it's good. Like, it's better than it's been in the years past.
Yes. Yes, I'll say that for sure. And I think it's because we've seen these guys work together before. Right? For not all of them, but for the most part, we've seen them, and we've seen them kind of grow together as a unit. I mean,
Yeah.
that right side, Spencer Brown and Osiris Torrance, both of them early last year kind of had their growing pains. But as the season went on, they just got better and better each week, and they became one of the better right side of the offensive line duos in the NFL. I mean, this is a
And
good duo right there.
I want to touch on, Spencer Brown, because not even 2 years ago, he was in my opinion, one of the worst offensive linemen in football. Like, he was bad. And he was taken as this big project piece from a small school. And he's really developed into a good right tackle. He was one of the better right tackles in the league last year, as you said. And with Osiris Torrance, coming out his rookie, again, struggled early on. But as the season went along, got better and better. I was super high on Osiris Torrance coming out. I thought he was one of the better players in that draft. So the fact that you've got these two young players, again, these are young dudes. They're only getting better going into the second year of playing together on that right side. It's going to be a good right side of the offensive line.
And we talked about how this is a gap-heavy team. More than anything, right? Every team kind of has their go-to run play pretty much. Their go-to run play is pinball, right? That's what they want to do. They love their, buck sweeps. That's what they do. Osiris Torrance, when he pulls, he kills people. Like, he murders people.
Murders people, yes.
And I love seeing it. I love seeing it. Him paving the way, whether it's on trap or, like I said, pin pull is kind of their go-to. He does such a great job when he's pulling across the formation, putting fear in the hearts of defensive ends and linebackers everywhere.
Absolutely. And then you move to center with Connor McGovern. He probably plays the majority of the season, I will say. I really like the center they grabbed in the draft, at least value-wise, where they picked him instead of Van Pran Granger. I thought he fell far too far, personally. So we'll see if he plays at all this season. Connor McGovern's a good center.
Yeah.
Solid center. You don't expect him to lose his job or be a liability.
But Van Pran, he has the ability to be like a dude. Like, there are some plays on his film that really get you hyped up. Mm-hmm. There's some other plays that are like, how the hell is this guy going to make it to the NFL? But he's a extremely hit or miss every single play type of guy. He never just like blends in. He will always stick out like a sore thumb. Whether that's a good or a bad thing depends on the play. Okay.
That's funny. I was just watching film on who's the Kentucky defensive tackle I just did a video on him. Deon Walker. I was just doing film on Deon Walker and his game against Georgia. And Deon Walker, if you don't know, big dude, 6'6", 330 pounds, hyper athlete, right? You got on one play where they're in pass protection and Cedric literally picks him up and throws him on the ground, and you're like, oh my god. And then the very next play, he just gets beat immediately in a pass rush by the same dude, and you're like, oh, what's happening here? That's what we mean by hit or miss. It's a lot of those kind of plays on his tape.
Mm-hmm. And then I want to mention McGovern. I want to go a little bit more in depth with him because this is the guy I expect to start the entire season.
Of course,
listen, good player. I think schematically he's a little bit better for, it's weird because he never played too much in a zone scheme. But I always watch him go up to the second level, and I'm like, man, I would like him a lot more in a, zone-heavy type of run scheme. Because that's his best trait, going up to the second level. And you don't, in a gap-heavy scheme, like, he'll do it, of course, but you're seeing him more as like a, backside fill type of guy, right?
He's not doing, like, he could be doing more with his athleticism, with his ability to get to the second level.
Exactly. And listen, he's not bad at that stuff, but I feel like he would be a lot more of like a name if he went out there on an outside zone heavy team. But that's just not what the Bills do, and it's fine. He'll still be really good. Very solid player for them. David Edwards, how do we feel about him?
So the thing with Edwards is I think he's a really good run blocker. I think when it came to his run blocking tape last year, especially towards the end of the season, that Cowboys game, if we've already mentioned, really good run blocker. I'm not going to say he's a liability in pass protection, I'm not going to say he's good at it either. I don't think he's all that great of a pass blocker, and he's probably, when it comes to straight up pass blocking, the weakest link along this offensive line at that point. But this team, with the new receivers coming in, and again, trying to take away from putting the load on top of Josh Allen's shoulders, maybe that run blocking's really, really ideal for how much the team's presumably going to run the ball.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I always liked Edwards. Again, pin pull, good puller, someone that will do his job consistently as a run blocker. But yeah, you're definitely right. I do think this is someone that tends to be really unaware in terms of blitz pickup. But maybe it helps having that new center, right? Maybe McGovern really makes the difference there. I'm not overly sure. We'll have to see. Deion Dawkins, the left tackle. Not the, biggest household name, right? And he's not someone who, makes these highlight blocks. We want someone who will just do their job consistently from the left tackle position. He's definitely a guy that'll do that and do it consistently.
Yes. And I'm blanking on the name, but we just talked about it. Was it the Jaguars we were talking about, Cam Robinson, and how he was just solid?
Exactly.
This is the type of player that Deion Dawkins is. Just solid, do your job, left tackle. Not going to wow you, but you're not going to talk about him a lot, which is a good thing for offensive linemen.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, an offensive line that's pretty good. Pretty good. All five.
It's probably the best unit we've seen Josh Allen work with in the last couple of years.
For sure. Having O'Cyrus Torrence on that team, I think, really makes a difference because he is someone that, for a while, it feels like the interior is where that pressure comes from, and that Spencer Brown always gets exposed. Deion Dawkins has been pretty good for a while, but it felt like, you blitz Allen up the middle, he's going to have to make a backyard ball football play. Now it's not like that because you have a guy like O'Cyrus who is such a good pass blocker. He anchors so well. And I think McGovern will help with that. Spencer Brown no longer being this huge liability, of course, helps. Like, it is definitely Allen's best pass blocking unit, or overall just offensive line.
Overall, just offensive line, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's get into the superlatives. Offensive Player of the Year.
I mean, it's Josh Allen.
It has to be. Game breaker, we'll do it rushing, we'll do it passing.
We'll say it like this. Josh Allen set up to, if this team does, do well, let's say they win this division somehow, that's MVP season, Josh Allen. This is set up for this is Josh Allen's year to win MVP.
Mm-hmm. Offensive Rookie of the Year.
So, it's weird. If Cedric Van Pran was going to play center for this team, I'd probably go with Cedric Van Pran.
Really?
But it's Keon Coleman.
The thing was, I wasn't big on Pran. I simply wasn't because he was so inconsistent. I love his upside, though. I like him down the line. I, of course, love him at that value. I don't see a world where he is a huge contributor, huge positive contributor in year one.
I don't think so either.
See, if hypothetically James Cook were to go down early, I could see Ray Davis here. I really could. But because I don't really expect that, and I don't want to try and predict injuries to players that don't really have an overwhelming injury history, I got to go Keon Coleman. I do, even though I think he will be kind of a role guy for now. There is a world where he becomes an offensive Rookie of the Year candidate. There is.
Totally.
So.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. X Factor. Who do you have? Or do you have an X Factor or 12 man here?
I do have my X Factor here. My X Factor is actually Keon Coleman.
Same thing here.
Because we talk about if he can become, super athlete to super athlete, and he's good, this is one of the premier duos in the NFL, Josh Allen, Keon Coleman. Mm-hmm. And it could be literally unstoppable. That's the type of thing we're dealing with here. And that's the variance of this ceiling of this connection, where you've got unstoppable and then you've also got quite stoppable. You know what I mean? So I'm going with Keon Coleman for my X Factor.
So do we think, before I get to my next one, because I might have my 12th man, depending on how we answer this, base personnel, we think that's going to be 12 or 11? Probably 11. I think they run a lot of 12. I think they run a lot of 12.
Because they have Dawson, they have Kincaid.
Yeah.
But it's probably 11.
Yeah,
I can't imagine Brady's being let's run my spread offense with two tight ends the majority of the time. You know what I mean?
because
So,
he is. I mean, there is a way to do that. Again, we talked about
there
the
is.
Cardinals. That's something they love to
Yes.
do. But I don't
This
think
is
that's how they're gonna run this.
no.
I don't. It would be fun. Again, they're gonna run a lot of 12 personnel. They did it last year. I don't think it's gonna be enough to be like their main formation.
No,
And
I don't
because of
think
that,
so.
I have Dawson Knox as the 12th man.
Yeah, that's mine too. So
Okay.
we're good.
Well, there we go. So now we move over to the defensive scheme. X Factor and 12th man we already did. How do we feel about this 4-2-5 Sean McDermott unit?
This was a unit that really got riddled with injuries last year, right?
Yes.
Especially at the linebacker position. And in a 4-2-5, those linebackers are really important. You know what I mean? So this defense struggled. But I look at this roster, I'm like, if this defense can stay healthy with this scheme and how Sean McDermott coaches, it should still be pretty damn good. Not some like crazy good unit, but a borderline top 10 unit that puts together some really good games is what I see with this defense. If they stay healthy. And that's an if at this point.
Yeah. I completely understand what you're saying there. Schematically, again, the thing is they coach it up so well. It's a soft zone heavy, Tampa 2 type of defense. Like that's what they do.
You're not seeing a ton of man. You're just seeing a lot of it's again kind of like that Fangio style defense of let the play happen in front of you, go make a tackle, don't let the big play happen.
Exactly. Maybe you'll see a little bit of match, but for the most part it's like spot drop zone. They disguise stuff a lot because they run both cover 3 and Tampa 2. They will disguise stuff, and it's not going to be like, oh, I see 2 high, it must be Tampa 2. Nope, we're going to shift over to cover 3.
We're going to shift to cover 3. Yeah.
It isn't something with a lot of tells. They disguise it really well, and that, listen, it doesn't change like an overwhelming amount. It's not like, oh, yeah, it's cover 3 instead of Tampa 2, so now nothing we're doing is going to work. Like, there still are just general zone-beating concepts. But again, these players are coached up really well and know how to take care of those.
Very, very smart players. Very, very smart players on this team. And one thing, again, I kind of mentioned at the start when we were talking about McDermott was like, this isn't a team that blitzes a whole lot, but it's a team that likes to run their simulated pressures in the sense of like this team that'll, mug up the line of scrimmage. They'll move people around and just make it, again, simulate those pressures. They make the quarterback uncomfortable, make the offensive line uncomfortable, make the offensive line think.
Yeah. And I think that becomes so dangerous because you look at the personnel on this defensive line. You got some guys that'll really like take advantage of a moment or two of hesitation, right?
You blink too fast and it's over.
I mean, let's just get into the defensive line unless there's anything else schematically you want to say. Yeah.
No, let's move into this defensive line.
Gregory Rousseau and even Epinesa. I mean, I got to say with Epinesa, by the way, someone who I liked a lot coming out of college, honestly.
I was too, yes.
Year 1 wasn't a big impact guy. Year 2, a little bit more. And just every year, he got better and better and better. And now he's like a guy.
Yeah, and it's so interesting with Epinesa, kind of the transformation he's gone through. He was a lot bigger in college.
Yeah.
He was a bigger player in college, like a big run-stopping defensive end kind of guy. And now he's slimmed down, and now he's got a bag of pass rush moves, and now he's good at going from power to speed and speed to power. Like, it's really intriguing to watch this guy grow from the player that he was.
And again, he's a true like McDermott guy, right? They ask him to seal the edge, he seals the edge. They ask him to get to the quarterback, he gets to the quarterback. Very reliable player. I mean, I don't see many plays where it's like, oh, that run play hit because Epinesa got washed. Like, it doesn't happen. He's always been like a really consistently reliable guy. Not a huge playmaker. But, I mean, he will make his fair share of, pressures, sacks. Like, he's an overall good player. And when you have those sim pressures, he becomes that much more dangerous. And then when you have someone like Rousseau on the other side, I mean, that's when you really start causing problems on the line of scrimmage.
And it feels like Greg Rousseau's kind of due for one of those big-time seasons. You know what I mean? That's the caliber of player, caliber of athlete we're dealing with Rousseau. I remember coming out of Miami, he was hyped up as one of the number 1 overall picks And then as draft season went along and as it went along, he fell and fell and fell into this Bills team's lap. And he hasn't been a superstar by any means for the Bills team, but he's been super solid. Just a good edge setter, has his moments as a pass rusher. He gets his interception or two once a year. It's kind of weird, just how it happens. But I really like this edge duo they have going on, and that's not even talking about Von Miller's coming back. Will he be, Von Miller again? Probably not.
Yeah,
but
Von Miller, to me, I think it's kind of over with him. I do. I'm sorry.
Like that. It's that image with the backpack, and it's like, just let it go, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He played 239 snaps last year and had a 60% missed/broken tackle percentage, which is like,
oh my God,
awful.
Is that a real stat?
Yeah, according to Sports Info Solutions. Yeah, that's really bad. Bert Rousseau, I wanted to go a little bit into his analytics. 46 pressures, while also being a really good run defender. Good player. I mean, you said he's going to go for like a splash season next year. There's not really too much more room for him to go. I mean, maybe he goes into like that Myles Garrett tier, but I could make a pretty strong argument. Maybe not even second tier pass rusher, but I can make a really strong argument that he is top of that third tier.
Yeah. And maybe more what I was saying is maybe not as a player go. I said it feels like he's in for one of those splash seasons of like it's going to happen where maybe it's not a consistent thing, but he goes for, double-digit sacks plus phenomenal run defender, and he's one of the best edges in football for a year. That's the kind of player he can be for a season.
Yeah. And then you get into the interior. You got Ed Oliver.
Real quick.
Okay.
Before we move to the interior, they did draft Javon Solomon. I think as a just pure pass rusher, really nice piece to have. Does he do a lot year one? No, but I just wanted to mention it because where they got him, I thought was really good value. This is a guy who's got, again, he went to Troy, not a big school, but he's got a bag of pass rush moves. He's got good speed around the edge. He's got good bend. He's a pass rusher, straight up. And he's a nice piece to have on this team, and he's a guy who could make some plays on this defense next year. Just wanted to mention him.
Yeah, for sure. But then you get to the interior. Ed Oliver is someone that really does a good job as like that finesse playmaker.
Yes.
Not a gap filler, but a gap shooter.
Yes.
And, again, he works his hands really well. He got some speed, and he's one of those guys who, when you add sim pressures to the equation, and get offensive linemen hesitating, he becomes so scary, right? And they really maximize the guy by doing that because he does such a good job as a pass rusher and a run defender.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. The guy next to him, I think, is very undervalued. And this was a big loss to their season last year. And Daquan Jones, he got hurt last year pretty early on. He's a good player. He's a damn good nose tackle, man. He's a guy who's not going to get moved. Really good run defender on top of being a pretty all-right pass rusher. Like, he'll go get his pressures. Him coming back and him staying healthy is a big deal to this defense.
Yeah, and when you have someone like an Ed Oliver, you kind of need to have the, big man next to him, right? Because if you don't, all of a sudden you have your smaller, faster guy getting double-teamed. But when someone like Daquan Jones is out there, he demands the double team, and now Ed Oliver gets to work his moves on a one-on-one.
Right. And then behind him, you have the rookie this year. By the way, if you haven't noticed, for me, Bills had a very, very good draft class, which we'll get to in this defense as well. But Dwayne Carter, I like the value of where they got him. This is a Sean McDermott dude. If you were to ask anybody at Duke last year, he was a captain there. Whose team is this? Everybody would tell you this is Dwayne Carter's team. He was their leader, and he backs it up with this play. Solid run defender, violent hands, can do stuff in the pass rush game. What he's going to be able to do as a rotational piece on this defensive line is going to be a big boon to this Bills defense.
Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from on that one. Carter is someone who can do a lot of damage for them there. Let's get to the linebackers now.
Yeah, let's move to these linebackers. And we'll start with, the highlight of this group, one of the better linebackers in football, Matt Milano, who, again, another player on this Bills defense who went down with injury last year.
Yeah.
And that's a big, again, this team runs a 4-2-5. Linebackers are a huge deal in this defense. And with the difference with him on the field rather than him not,
night and day. Night and day. You want to run Tampa too. You got to have that linebacker that covers space and covers space well. Matt Milano is very good as that kind of, it's not a deep third, but it's very similar to a deep third from the linebacker position. Someone has to run it when you're running Tampa 2, because if you don't have someone doing that, that middle of the field is very vulnerable. And Milano was very often that guy. Yeah.
And it was.
It was. And they had to kind of stay to much more cover 3 last year.
They ran, and that was that's what I was going to get to. That was a big difference between this defense not being able to run the Tampa 2 like they wanted to. They had to stay in cover 3 a lot.
A lot more than they would have liked.
Yes,
and that was because of Milano going down. He was such an important player for them. Losing him, there was no one else that could fill that role. I feel like they brought in Dorian Williams to kind of play that for them, but he really didn't do a great job. It was a rookie year.
I liked Dorian Williams coming out, but again, I knew coming out this was the guy you kind of wanted to. Again, the idea with a lot of linebackers for a lot of teams is you take athletes late in the draft and you develop them into good linebackers, and that's what they did with Dorian Williams. So not even late in the draft, they took him in like the 3rd round, but that's what they wanted to do with him.
And then Terrell Bernard was the complementary linebacker. He came in last year. I think he was pretty all right.
He was all right.
Pretty solid guy. He was another, McDermott guy, plays with his hair on fire. Doesn't have overwhelming traits, but I think his instinctiveness, and he was very clearly aware when he was in coverage. Just a fine player. Very simple.
And then there's also Balin Spector. He played a bit last year. I don't think he was very good, but he's on this team, and he is the second linebacker at this point. So
yeah. So then we go to the secondary. This is where I start to get a little bit more concerned. Right. Because Rasul Douglas last year, phenomenal player, really good job. When he came in, for the 9 games he played with Buffalo, 45% completion rate, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on 33 targets. Right. That's a good stat line. That was in 9 games. But then you look, complimentary corner, what do we got here, right? Christian Benford, are we really relying on that? Do we go over to Kaiir Elam? He hasn't been too good.
He hasn't been good.
But there isn't really much.
He is still has that first-round pedigree, still athletic. You're hoping he can put it together. I don't think so. I do think this team probably leans on Christian Benford. And I like Benford enough. I think you're hoping at best he's not a liability this season. And I think there's a world where he's not. And I think he's a pretty average to good corner. But that's a projection-based thing. He's a young player still.
I will say this. Their nickel corner is one of the most stereotypical traditional nickel corners in the NFL, and that's a good thing. Teron Johnson, very good as a run fit guy, does a really good job with that, and he's very instinctive, very good at mirroring wide receivers, which is very difficult when you're in the slot as a nickel corner because slot receivers have more room to move. Okay, they can threaten you outside, they can threaten you inside. All right, you don't have the sideline as really your friend there. It's far more difficult to be a nickel corner, and Teron Johnson has been playing that nickel spot for them ever since he was drafted in 2018.
Yep.
Good player.
And so someone I do want to mention, here as the outside corner, as a potential outside corner, I should say. I doubt he gets a whole lot of run time, at least to start the season, is rookie Daquan Hardy. There were 3 cornerbacks on the Penn State team this year that were eligible for the draft. I watched all 3 of them. Daquan Hardy was my favorite of the bunch. I think he's a really good fit for this, soft zone scheme that they have. I'm just saying, if Benford's not working out, if Elam's not working out, I wouldn't be surprised if this team tries out Daquan Hardy, because not only is he good on this soft zone scheme, he's also athletic enough to be like a playmaker in this scheme. So I just wanted to throw it out there. I remember when they drafted him, and I was like, ooh, I like the value of where he got picked. Just thought to throw it out there.
Yeah, but I want to move over specifically to the strong safety now.
Yes.
Taylor Rapp is someone who I don't know how you feel really, but with the Rams, I was a pretty big fan of his game.
Yep.
Last year with the Bills, I was kind of in this weird spot with this film. I was. It seemed like he was, I don't want to say better in coverage, but he wasn't getting exposed as much. There were plays where I feel like he should have been exposed, but whatever, fine. He wasn't having the same effect as like this box, run defender last year, and maybe that's because they didn't really use him like a box safety. But if so, what are you doing, right? I mean, this is Taylor Rapp. Like, that's kind of his game. I don't know. Tell me how you feel with him.
I like Taylor Rapp. I thought he was fine last year. Again, not only not being utilized correctly as that box safety role, I thought he had his issues as a tackler as well. Like, I thought they were just like, you were due for a brain fart Taylor Rapp play game. It's just kind of what it felt like. And I do think they drafted Cole Bishop to replace him and to play.
So I like where you're heading, but you have Cole Bishop replace Taylor Rapp, who's playing free safety.
Right, totally. But that's the thing. Cole Bishop, I think, is playing strong safety. I think, you're probably seeing Mike Edwards play free safety.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's really tough because Rapp was this player who was far more exciting and reliable on LA. Then he headed over here, and just last year I wasn't a big fan. And listen, he was kind of on the decline with the Rams because he was starting to get exposed a lot in coverage pretty consistently. Then this year, I guess he had his best coverage season in a while, but he wasn't the same like dominant presence as a run defender and just overall tackler. I mean, some of his open field tackling was just poor. I don't know. I really am not sure what to think of Rapp. Do we try that again? Maybe we have Mike Edwards as like a.
I think Taylor's going to be much more of a safety net rotational piece in the secondary. I do think it's going to be Cole Bishop as that, taking on that Jordan Poyer role of the strong safety, box safety kind of guy. That's kind of my comp. That was kind of my comp coming out for Bishop anyway. Even before he got drafted, was like, this is kind of a Jordan Poyer-esque player.
Yeah,
that's that's where he got drafted, and I was like, oh, makes sense.
So, and then I find that a little bit funny because I saw Cole Bishop more like the Micah Hyde, right? So this is, I guess, a difference in terms of how we see Bishop. And I guess he does, like, he wasn't a bad tackler, but I liked him more as like this high safety. And I feel like having him play a little bit more with run responsibility, have him play more on, not that they run a lot of man, but when you do, have him be the guy line up at tight ends. I don't know. I just don't think that's a great fit for his skill set, but you feel differently.
I do feel a bit differently. I thought he was, for one, really good blitzer, something Poyer did a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think he has the body type to be like, again, he wasn't used as a box safety primarily in Utah, right? I think he can be, and I think he'd be damn good at it, and I think that's what he was drafted for.
I think that might be why. I think it was the utilization. Because you're right, there wasn't really any plays that made me say, like, this guy can't do it. But there wasn't really plays where he was utilized like that.
Right,
and maybe it's just that he has those skills and he just wasn't utilized properly. But I guess there is, reason to believe he has that versatility. If you want to use him as a strong safety, if you want to use him as a free safety, it's really your call.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Edwards, I still wouldn't be excited about, but
no.
Yeah,
but I think he could play the free safety role. Fine.
And again, it does help this scheme. There's a lot less room for error.
Yeah,
for error. But the secondary is definitely like the part that could get exposed a bit because I don't like their second outside corner, whoever that ends up being, and I think strong safety could be a little bit of a liability, a little bit. But yeah, no, so that's the defensive unit. Tell me, defensive player of the year, who are you thinking?
I'm probably gonna have to go with. I had two names written down here because I hadn't really decided. For me, I think I'm gonna have to go with Rasul Douglas. I think Rasul Douglas, in for a full season, gonna be a really good fit on this team.
I really like that pick. I really like that pick because he was really good last year when he came in for them.
Yes.
So for me, I wanted to say Rousseau.
So Rousseau is the other name on my list.
I wanted to say Rousseau really badly, but I also really want to say Milano.
Yes.
My only thing preventing me from saying Milano is he's coming off a pretty drastic injury. You know, he was drafted in 2017, so he's only getting older. I feel like I'm going to say Rousseau. Just because of the youth, there isn't the injury history. It feels like the safer pick.
Totally. Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think we probably both had the same one, unless you think Dwayne Carter's getting a lot of run time.
No, I'm going Cole Bishop for sure.
Yeah, he's going to be.
Whether it's at free safety or strong safety,
he's playing.
He's playing, and he is a very reliable, consistent name. Not a playmaker, but you know, you need someone to play that deep third, play that deep half. He'll do it, and he'll do really well. And you believe, and he is a good blitzer, but you also believe if you need someone to play down in the box, he could do that too. And listen, I don't have reason to believe otherwise. I just don't. We didn't see it much on film. But yeah, it should be interesting if he does have that versatility. Now, special teams. It's not an overly exciting thing here. Sam Martin as a punter is just straight up uninspiring. And Tyler Bass as a kicker, he's fine.
He's fine.
Then you look at the returners. I feel like they have a lot of names. I don't know which name stands out the most, though. Khalil Shakir was, of course, very good after the catch last year, so there's a lot of reason to believe he could be the move.
I mean, Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel was the name I wanted to mention. Keon Coleman has experience returning kicks.
Andy Isabella could do it with his speed.
Yep, Andy Isabella is another guy. Ray Davis is someone who returned kicks, and I think with a lot of power. So
Daquan Hardy, the corner I touched on a bit, he returned kicks when he was with the Nittany Lions, and so that could be something for him as well.
Darrington Evans is another guy. Like we could just keep listing guys. Ty Johnson has experience returning kicks. Like they have a lot of guys who have experience. It's just who is going to be the best.
We'll see.
I honestly want to go Ray Davis as the pick. That's probably where I'm leaning, just because you want that guy getting out there more. I think with how he runs, getting him out there with blockers in front of him. But I also think they have a really this is the thing that interests me the most with their specific special teams unit, just all special teams. There's something that we haven't went over too much yet, but I think it is something that I want to hit on more often from this point forward. The 10th man. And I think this is a perfect team to really introduce that possibility of the unique utilization of the 10th man. For those of you unfamiliar, with the new kickoff rules, you have to line up 9 players on that, not line of scrimmage, but that...
essentially a line of scrimmage.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it, right? Then you get the freedom with 2 players. One of them obviously has to be the returner. The other one could be a second returner who maybe catches the kick if it goes further left than right. Or maybe you have a pitch man. Or maybe you have a lead blocker. Or maybe you just have a 10th man on the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of freedom. I think a lot of people are going to go, 10th man on the line of scrimmage. But with this 10th man, I think Reggie Gilliam as either a pitch guy or a lead blocker. When I say pitch, I mean like a speed option type of deal.
Yeah.
That could be. I think Reggie Gilliam is definitely going to be that 10th man. It's just a question of lead blocker, pitch man. Will they do both and kind of mix it up? I don't know. But I think there's a lot of fun stuff you could do with a Reggie Gilliam as that 10th man.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it gets me excited to talk about the next team's fullback and what he could do as a 10th man.
Yeah, for sure, right? But then there's other names I want to mention on special teams.
I want to talk about, Mac Hollins has been special teams dude for a while now, man.
Yep.
With the Dolphins, he was our special teams captain. He was our ace, and
he caught He caught I want to say it was a fake punt with
Yes.
the Raiders.
Yes, he did.
It
No, he
was.
did.
He
Yeah, I know
caught a
what you're talking
fake
about.
punt with the Raiders
And
a
he's
couple
just
years ago. He's a
he really
gunner.
prides
He's a
he
really
pri-
good gunner.
he prides himself on making
Yeah.
tackles, on downing the ball at the he's the guy who's downing the ball at the 1 yard line and he's celebrating after.
Hmm.
Like, this is a special teams player.
Yeah.
And again, to have him as your fourth receiver too, really big deal.
Yep. Justin Shorter is someone who has experience as a special teamer. Ty Johnson, if he's not returning, we talked about how he is a really good run blocker and pass blocker from the running back position. Could definitely be an asset on special teams. I'm expecting him to be an asset on special teams. Trey McKitty has experience as a special teamer. And then, of course, you got to have guys that could tackle. Ede Olu. I still don't know how to pronounce this name. I'll never be able
And
to
if
get it down.
Juan Olufashio,
Way to be. I'm not going to try. But yeah, he's someone who is absolutely going to be a special teamer, at least for his first season. DeMar Hamlin played special teams last year. Don't let the punt thing in the playoffs fool you. He was a pretty good,
he's a good
special teamer. He was. And then Dorian Williams, if he's not getting too much playing time on the starting defense, I expect him to be a really nice asset as a special teamer.
Absolutely.
Now let's get into the season predictions. For floor, we agreed 6-11, or I had 7-10. You had 6-11, so we're going 6-11, right? Because in case you're unfamiliar, the floor is whatever one of us have the lower floor. The ceiling is whichever one of us have the higher ceiling.
Yep.
I said 6-11. You said
No, I said 6-11.
did you?
I think we both agreed on 6-11.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And then, I had the lower ceiling. I knew I was lower than you on one area. I had 10 wins. You had 12, so we're going with 12-5. Prediction, what do you have?
So, as much as this team is like the 16th ranked team on this ranking,
Mm-hmm.
I think this Steelers team's going to be good. I think this Steelers team makes the playoffs. I think they're going to win 11 games.
Wow. I think this is the biggest difference the two of us have had. Because I have them finishing below 500, 8-9.
Wow.
8-9, yeah. Listen, it's a tough schedule, dude. You look at this, I mean, let's just dive into the schedule, right? The first week, they play against a team both of us think is a lot better than even where we rank them. Because we project them to be a lot better than that. But, I mean, it is week 1, so maybe it's not all worked out, but still. Arizona. I know it is week 1, but that also means Kyler Murray is going to be healthy. We know that for a fact. And he's going to be fully healthy. Could be a big debut for a Marvin Harrison in this one. I mean, you tell me, what's the thought process here? I think it's a tough one.
It's really like, where's this Cardinals defense at, right? Because we know this is a new receiving core, but it's still Josh Allen, right? It's still Josh Allen, and they're going to have to defend the run and James Cook. If it turns into a shootout, I'd probably lean the Bills week 1 because it's Josh Allen, but this is a toss-up for me.
Yeah, no, it should be a good one. It should be a good way to start the season. I might give the Bills the advantage because they're home. But listen, if Josh Allen plays like he did in week 1 of last year, Cardinals win with ease. Then at Miami, I think both of the Miami games should be pretty fun.
They're always fun for the Bills fans because they always win. But no, this should be a competitive game, absolutely. Yeah. It's really just the thing about this is McDermott does a really, really good job playing against Tua and playing against this McDaniel offense in the sense of just taking that first read away, really pressing at the line of scrimmage, and it does result in some, breakthroughs in coverage. But it's not only that. Josh Allen owns the Miami Dolphins. He's the owner of the Miami Dolphins. And every time he plays us, he's good.
I think what you say is true about them shutting down the middle of the field, and we know how bad Tua is when the middle of the field is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got to go Buffalo.
I think you make
a very strong argument against your own team.
Yes, I'm just keeping it real, man. It's really hard to say the Bills can even pick up one of the. I mean, the Dolphins can pick up one of the two games because we've struggled so heavily against Buffalo, whether it's at Buffalo, whether it's in Miami. Now, actually, no, because it's not even an advantage at this point. This isn't in the sun the last time we beat them. This is a primetime game. It's at night in Florida. It's going to be nice, like, for the most part. So I'd lean the Bills here.
Yeah. And then they have another primetime game. I mean, they have 3 primetime games in a row. That's kind of annoying. Jacksonville, Monday Night Football on ESPN, 7:30.
I feel
I was gonna say I feel good. But this could also be a game. We know how both of these quarterbacks are. Either quarterback can just single-handedly lose their team the game here.
Totally.
So I don't know. I mean, this one could be a little bit more up in the air than we think. I'll say that.
But I do want to make clear I do lean Bills here.
Yeah, because I think the Bills are just a better team. But again, I'm willing to say this game's like a 60-40 because I do think quarterback play, it's so erratic with both of these guys. Or maybe both of them have a bad day, or even better, primetime football. It would be really fun. Both of them have a exactly. But then Baltimore at Baltimore. I like their run
at Baltimore.
Yeah. Okay, I meant like they're playing Baltimore and then
no, I get you.
New sentence at Baltimore. This one's primetime football. Buffalo, I like their run defense. I like their run defense. I don't think I like it enough for them to go ahead and beat Baltimore with such a strong rushing attack.
Right, I agree, but it's really like, where's this Ravens defense at after the departure of Mike McDonald? And I think that's a fair assessment to have here.
Do you think so this is an interesting question here, and I guess we should have brought it up when we talked about Miami a little bit. How do we think this Bills offense matches up against that type of scheme with a McDonald?
And it's something we've touched on before. He's never, like, when we talked about McDonald in the Seahawks, we talked about him playing the Cardinals and how Kyler Murray and his game-breaking, scrambling ability could, like, mess this defense up because this defense is so, reliant on the defense getting their job done and sticking to that job, right? Josh Allen's the same kind of game breaker where if he doesn't see what he likes, he's going to extend the play. I think this Bills offense goes into this this defense pretty well, matches up pretty well. Josh Allen specifically does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have other backyard ball playmakers like a Kincaid, who, by the way, Kincaid versus Roquan Smith, really fun matchup. Really fun one. But they have other guys like that. I don't know. I'm still going Baltimore. I still think their rushing attack, keep in mind with a Derrick Henry. Yeah.
Totally. And I think I would lean the Bills, but this should be a phenomenal game. That's 4 straight should be phenomenal games to watch.
Yeah. Well, the Bills are gonna be a fun team. Like, their games are gonna be close. Even though I'm lower on them, I still think the games they lose are going to be really tight, and that's how McDermott is. He always has these tight football games being played. Then we got a non-primetime game, but maybe this one should be.
One of the games of the year, if we're being honest.
Well, if Josh Allen comes to play.
Yeah.
Right. Again, this isn't the same type of Bills team, but if the Bills are playing their best football, first off, Bills should be really tired at this point. And let me just say, it's not getting too much easier, right? I mean, Texans, oh my God, man. Texans are really good. I think Texans kind of whoop them just because, I mean, look at what the Bills are coming off of.
I think that's fair to say simply because we're talking 3 straight primetime games.
Yes, exactly.
This team is exhausted. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. And it was a primetime physical football game with Baltimore. Mm-hmm. Then the Jets. Once again, primetime. They don't get a break, man.
Jesus. Wow. But here's the thing. I think they're going to split with the Jets this season. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. If not, I think the Bills take both games. I think Josh Allen, outside of that first week 1 game where he was forcing balls to Stephon Diggs and forcing the ball into stupid places, the next game against the Jets, he was phenomenal. Like, he tore that defense apart. Specifically, because that was a big Khalil Shakir game. He was torching that defense. And I do think if Aaron Rodgers is come to play and they're good, the Jets should pick off a game. I still think Josh Allen and this Bills team take one of the two Jets games.
Yeah, but this one's in New York.
In prime time.
In prime
we'll
time.
See.
Who do we think that benefits? Because those are unique circumstances. It's bound to have an effect. I like Rodgers has experience on primetime, like without a doubt.
Absolutely, and
so does Allen.
So does Josh.
And listen, I guess they're not. I guess by now they're used to the primetime. But again, like I feel like they should be really exhausted at this point. But they know the importance of this game.
Then this is the thing. Then something you can say forever: the Bills come to play in divisional games.
Yes,
the Bills pride themselves on winning their divisional games. So if I just want to say this, we always talk about it at some point. Which two teams are more likely to win both games? I would lean the Bills.
So this is the thing that makes it tough. I think the Jets, their linebacker duo of C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams, make it really hard for someone like a Kincaid to really shine as like that number one option. And because of that, they have to rely more on a Shakir, on a Keon Coleman, on those guys. You put Sauce on the right player, right? I mean, he's a zone coverage guy. They play a lot of zone. If you put him on the right side of the field, I think there are several plays where it's just Josh Allen can't do anything, right? And I know Josh Allen makes something out of nothing very often, but I think it's kind of beyond that at a point. And when you got Quinion Williams rushing at you, it becomes very difficult to make those backyard football plays happen. Aaron Rodgers has seen the cover three a lot. I like Garrett Wilson and how he's able to play against zone coverage as someone that settles down. I think the Jets win both. I do.
I think my personal, I think they're going to split, but we'll keep going. We'll keep moving.
So then we move on to Tennessee. Finally, like a safe break.
I think this might be a trap game, man. I'm being so honest. I think this might be a trap game.
The thing that makes that really tough is like, don't you think with the Bills and them playing so many tough opponents in a row, they can't like let their guard down? Not under McDermott. Maybe if this was some worse coach, I don't think they fall for a trap when they know how desperate they probably are.
I shouldn't say trap, but this is one of those games where like. This is one of those teams, I should say, where if this team is what it can be, if Will Levis is what he can be, Will Levis is a quarterback who can take advantage of this defense, of this zone defense. He can fit this ball into windows with this receiving core, which is pretty damn good. So, like, this is just I say it's a trap game. More I say, if this Titans offense, I should say, if Will Levis is cooking, this is a defense I think that can be taken advantage of by the quarterback and by those receivers. I would go the Bills still, absolutely. I just want to point it out that there's a world where Will Levis is good and he takes advantage.
Then at Seattle, we talked about how they match up against McDonald. We think that's in their favor. I do think that the Bills can take advantage of a run defense that I don't think is overly fantastic.
Yep.
I think the Bills win this one. I feel pretty good about it.
Me too.
Then Miami
in Buffalo,
again.
In November, I feel very confident saying the
Bills. This one is in Seattle, actually.
I was talking about Dolphins Bills. Sorry, I thought we moved on.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. The Miami game, Buffalo probably wins. So 2 back-to-back, we feel pretty confident about that. Possibly even 3, very likely. But then they play against the Colts.
It could be hard. It's gonna be difficult, but
it should be a good game. It should be a good game.
Josh Allen again matches well into this defense of just I'm gonna rocket this ball into the cover seam. 3 that you're gonna spam
into the whole
every
shot.
single time.
Yep.
Dalton Kincaid should eat here.
Yeah.
Like, if we're being honest.
This should be a big Kincaid. Yeah, you know what? I feel good saying Bills.
Yeah.
I do for that reason. Although running the ball should be tough.
Now you also have to see like where's this Colts offense at, right? Because can you hear that?
Of course I can.
Okay.
Lord forbid we got one recorded, right?
Lord forbid, dude. I didn't.
You know what's really lucky?
Walked up, dude.
Yeah, you know what's really lucky? The dog is actually getting their hair cut right now. That's why I was like, oh yeah, this is a perfect time to get some recordings down, but I guess not. Whether it's Travis or the landscaper, it's always something.
They do not want to hear about Anthony Richardson and how he matches up into
Clearly
the Bills
not.
defense. But anyway, back to what I was saying. How this Colts offense is and how good they are also, plays a factor in this game because oh my God, bro. We got to get through this quick, and I think this might be
I was going to look downstairs, see if I have dinner, and then wait that out.
Well, I have to go out to dinner at 5, so that's the issue here.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So that's in an hour. There's no way.
Yeah. Plus, because Vikings will take some time. That has some intricacies.
Oh, my God. Of course. Yeah.
But okay, he's gone. He walked that way. Let's go. Let's just move off the Colts. Let's just go to the Chiefs-Bills one.
So now on to the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs.
Yes.
I mean,
Chiefs going to
Bills-Chiefs is a rivalry. Like, it is a modern-day rivalry. And I think this is one where the Bills can go out and damage them. I do. I think that rushing attack, first off, run defense versus rushing offense should be really fun here.
Yep.
But I also think the Bills got some guys that could beat press. I do.
Yes.
This could be. In fact, I'm expecting this to be a big Keon Coleman game. I'm expecting Dawson Knox to do some damage in this one. I'm expecting a lot of things here that work in the Bills' favor. Now, them being a zone-heavy team, can they get exposed by Travis Kelce? Yes. But how did Travis Kelce do in the regular season last year? Not too well. Not too well at all.
They played the Chiefs well. This is a rivalry, and this is a game. Like, both teams take it serious. The Bills take this game serious. The Bills do not like the Chiefs. And this is also that part of the season where the Chiefs are like, God, sleeping
lackadaisical.
Lackadaisical. And you're like, oh, man, they just got beat by 20 to the Raiders. They're not winning the Super Bowl, and then they win. So.
Going into the bye week on a win for the Bills, because they have the bye next week, against the Chiefs, that could be the type of thing that gets them the momentum to really make that last push, where they have a really difficult schedule and just still make it and just keep rolling, right? I think this is the most crucial game of the season for them.
Yes.
I'll definitely say that. I say the Bills take it because I think they understand the importance.
I think so, too. It helps us at home, too. Then you got the 49ers coming to the Tundra. I feel good about the Bills winning this game. I'm be honest with you. I think they match up decently well.
The run defense, again, is a thing here. The 49ers run defense, I don't think, is great. Maybe Hufanga throws a wrench in this equation a little bit. And I think the fact that they have multiple good weapons causes some problems for the 49ers. I also think Shanahan could beat up a cover 3, and he could beat up a Tampa 2.
He totally can. But this is one of those games where we might see this, which, we like the 49ers. They're ranked high. We'll get to them when we do. This could be a game where, the Ed Oliver kind of takes over against this interior offensive line.
Yeah.
And Brock Purdy starts to struggle a bit,
Mm-hmm. I think I take the 49ers still just because of how schematically Shanahan matches up against the soft zone stuff. But, yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from.
And, I think being in the cold, it's December, might be snowing a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a Bills game, but still, totally understandable. Yeah. Then we get to Bills-Rams. This is where I feel pretty confident about the Rams winning this game.
Yeah.
In L.A., it's warm L.A. right now. Stafford's going to eat this cover 3 zone, or cover 2 zone, whatever it is. This feels like they're on a roll, beat the Chiefs, beat the 49ers, and then the Rams come and just stop it right there.
Yeah, I absolutely get where you're coming from, and I think it's worth mentioning, they got their dogs on the interior offensive and defensive line.
Yes.
They got their guys. I think they beat up on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball, and I think that's just a formula for success in the modern NFL. Then Detroit, another team. Line of scrimmage battle, they're just going to eat you up. They're just going to eat you up.
Them up.
I just think I think Detroit's just a force to be reckoned with, man.
Well, as you'll see when we get to their ranking, we think they are a very, very good football team.
Yes.
Now, there is a world where, this team in Detroit likes to play their off man. They want to play man, and they have there's a world where Keon Coleman is what he is, and Terry Arnold's not going to cover the guy. Like there's a world where that happens, right?
And
Khalil
I think it
Shakir's
could be a
getting
big
open.
Shakir game.
Yes, this is where Shakir can eat. This is where Kincaid can eat. It's really just like I just don't know if this Bills defense can stop the Lions on the line of scrimmage on offense. So I would take the Lions.
I think the Patriots are bound to upset them once.
I disagree, but
well, because you know what? Yeah, they always have
Bill
problems
Belichick's
with the
not there
mobile
anymore,
quarterback.
man.
Yeah, that's something too. That's something I always used to say. I used to always feel like a genius saying like, "Oh yeah, the Patriots are going to beat the Bills twice." But that just
and this is also where like again, that Patriots offensive line I think will struggle against.
That's true. Yeah. And by now May should be starting, maybe. And I think May is just he has the arm to beat up the cover 3, but does he have the brain? I don't know. And does he have the pieces around him? Probably not. So yeah, I get where you're coming from with that. And then the Jets.
We already talked about them. Like it's split, or are they taking both? Whatever. Mm-hmm. So.
And they wrap it up with the Patriots. Listen, we talked about like a potential postseason push towards the end. I doubt it. It's such a tough schedule. I think that's the thing that really goes against them, and that's why they're definitely the highest ranked team I'm going to have going below 500. Mm-hmm. Right? It's such a tough schedule. But, yeah, that is all. Dean, this is going up on your channel, so go ahead and wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the 16th team in the 2024 preseason power rankings with the Buffalo Bills. Again, this is going to be a super – like, I'm a Dolphins fan. I do have hate in my heart for this team, absolutely. But as a football fan, this is going to be such a fun team to watch, and a team with a lot of variance, a team that's going to have a lot of exciting plays. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Please keep in mind that the evens come out on my channel. The odds come out on Pat's channel, which I have linked in the description below. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.